I welcome on behalf of Amity School of Economics, Mr. Abhinav Pal. He's assistant professor in the Symbiosis Institute. So he accepts our invitation at a very short notice. We really thankful to you. Mr. Pal will share the insights about the data analysis using the Stata, which is much in demand, and it is very useful for the economic students. I hope the students will get a hands-on experience about the application of Stata for the data analysis. Over to you, Mr. Pal.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. So good morning, students. So what we're going to start this session as, first we'll talk about certain basic utility of Stata as a software for somebody who's from the economics discipline, and how this software could be used in research. While today we'll just broadly focus on visualization, graphical visualization, basic statistics, and we'll try to, if time permits, we'll try to talk about panel data also, how regression in panel data would work with Stata. Now, first thing first, to actually learn Stata, you should have the software for Stata. So actually, I've shared on your chat a drive link. Is that drive link visible to all? Is that, could somebody just confirm, is the drive link visible in your chat box? If any student is there, maybe if they can just confirm over chat or otherwise. If the drive link is visible.
Sir, can you please share again?
Yeah, I'll share it again. Yeah, I've just sent it on the chat. Is it visible? Okay. So what you can do at the outset, first of all, go to this drive link. Go to this drive link. Open this drive link. It will lead you to a zip file. It would lead you to a zip file. You'll probably ask for access, and it will lead you to a zip file for the software. Is everybody able to get the zip file? So yeah, I'll be giving the access as soon as you ask for it. I'll be giving the access. Just give me. So everybody can ask for access to this zip file, and soon you'll be given the access to the zip file. I think some of you might have been given access by now. So I'll just give you certain instructions to install this software. So once you open the zip file, you will probably get, let me share my screen. You'll probably get a series of folders and documents like these, as you can see here, right? As you can see here, and you need to copy, and you need to start the setup. You need to start the setup from here, and once the setup is completed, you just have to click on Stata 64. Probably most of us would be having 64 bits. People who are probably having Mac or etc., they'll probably have to choose another link or find out another link. Or but this software is mostly for Windows. The link that I have already shared. The link that I have already shared. So have you guys? Could somebody please confirm if they've got access to the link and the zip file as of now? Could somebody just confirm if they've got the access to the link and the zip file? So, okay. Once you get the access, we'll be broadly talking about how exactly in Stata we import data. Right? So one particular thing about Stata is that it does not read any string data. It does not read any string data, and whatever data that you are planning to actually access, needs to be actually in numeric form only. So what I'll do, I also will mail you the data set that we'll try to work on. So could you guys tell me, or is there a way that I can send the data set to all of you? Is there a student group where I could send the data set, or on this chat could I attach a file? Or if you give me your email ID, then probably just mail the data set to all of you so that we can actually work on that data as well. Okay, just a second, I'll attach my file here. Right. Is everybody able to see this file called IT sector? Have you got this file, IT sector Excel file? So I want you to actually open this file first. I want you to actually open this file and look at the data once. Just try to look at the data. How does it look, etc. in an Excel. And we'll be first importing this in Stata. We'll first be importing this in Stata, and we'll first figure out what is the issue and what are the variables that we are looking at. Okay. Now, is the data visible to, is the folder visible to all of you? Is the Excel file visible to all of you? Right? Can you see? So let me look at this Excel. Right? Is my screen visible to all of you? Is everybody would probably able to see the screen now? Now, if you see the screen, I have here around 7 variables. I have company, I have year, I have age, I have return on assets, and I have something like a size, I have leverage, and I have MBAC, right? Now, what I'll do, I'll first try to define these variables so that you get some idea. I'll try to define these variables for you. what do these variables actually mean and how we are gonna use them in Stata, right? How we are gonna use them in Stata exactly. Now, you see the first variable is obviously very commonsensically is your company name, right? So we are focusing on the IT sector. So we have all sort of companies, right, that are into the business of IT solution and IT services or IT products, right? Second is your year, right? Now, the moment I add year and the moment I see the these variables changing over period of time, right? This becomes a time series data. This becomes a time series data, right? Like if you see here now, like the moment I add the aspect of time, right? This data becomes time series. Also, it's already cross section, right? So we are talking about entities. The moment I talk about one entity, now just to be clear, I hope everybody has some sort of idea what a time series and what is a cross section data. Do you guys have an idea what's the time series data and what's the cross section data, or how many of you would need some sort of clarification? We'll try to clarify so that you do not have any doubts as we go ahead with the analysis. Now, anybody could probably explain me what is time series data and what's a cross section data? Could anybody probably raise their hand, unmute themselves, or probably tell me what's the time series data? How is it different from a cross section data? Would anybody be able to answer that? Okay, so put at its simplest, if I talk about, let's say, stock prices, and if I look at 30 companies and their stock prices at, let's say, 10:17 a.m. today, right? If I look at 30 companies and if I look at their stock prices at 10:17 a.m. today, right? If I look at data at a particular snapshot of time, that becomes a cross-section data, right? That becomes a cross-section data. So with regard to, let's say, the data that we are talking about, if it was just a cross-section data, I would be just looking at, let's say, the year 2009. The year 2009, just at the year 2009, these observations, right? All the observations in this Excel of 2009, the year 2009, will probably fetch us only the cross-section part of this data, right? But if I look at, let's say, price of one stock for 30 days over at 10:18 or 10:19 a.m., that would probably tell me that it's a time series data. And if I mix both of these, we get something like a panel data. Now, again, have you guys got the access to the link? Siddhant Kashyap, could you tell me if you got access to the link for downloading Stata? Okay, so what about Siddhartha Sen, Alaya Chabra? Have you got access to the link that I have sent for downloading Stata? Okay, Farah Siraj, have you got access to the link for downloading Stata? Okay, Alaya Chabra have also got. So once you've got the zip file, Siddhant Kashyap, have you been able to download those files and start the setup for startup. Siddhant Kashyap and Alaya Chabra, have you guys been able to download the file? Okay, so I guess once you have downloaded the file, you can start running Stata and it should appear something like this, right? It should appear something like this, right? So if I go here, yeah. So this should be your screen for startup, right? This should be your screen for your software, right? Now, if you see, there are certain tabs here. Whenever you import data, all your variables will come this side. All your variables will come this side, and you'll have something like a data viewer here, a variable manager where you can actually change your variable. Now, first thing first, what do you do once you have your file is that you import your data, right? You import your data. So what do? Whatever file you have, whichever format, these are the formats that Stata actually works with, right from Excel spreadsheet to .csv, right? All of these. But again, I need to be very careful. I need to be very careful that Stata does not read string variable, right? So, so these variables where you have data in the form of string will be an issue, right? So I need to do something to actually probably change this, right? So any idea what can we do? What can we do if string data are a problem? If string data are a problem for me, what can I do to make my data readable in Stata, right? What should be my first step to change the data? So you guys have done Excel, right? You guys have done a bit of Excel. Now, there are two ways how you can make your data readable if it contains string values. If it contains string values. So one would be a very tedious task is that I go to Excel and I do control find and I replace, right? Let's say I have this. If I have this and I replace it with 1, right? So what I can do is I'm coding my company. I'm coding my company in the IT sector with a numeric data, right? With a numeric data. So what you can do something like this. And now if you see, you have made 10 replacement, right? You have made 10 replacement. The moment you convert your company with 1, right? You make the string data, a numeric data, right? So you need to code your data first, whatever kind of data you have. You need to be sure that you're not having a string data in your data set. So what I want you to guys do as starters, first of all, convert this Excel first into a numeric data, right? Please convert this Excel into numeric data. Have you understood what we are doing here? Does anybody have any doubt till now? To make Stata read data, I am trying to first convert whatever string variables that I have in the Excel sheet as a numeric data. Siddhant Kashyap, is it clear? What did we do here? Is Siddhant Kashyap here? Okay. Right. So Siddharth, you have asked whether we have to find and replace in the company column only. Yes, technically, for any sort of software, this is not only for Stata, and probably you don't need to do this in Stata, but I'm assuming that you guys will work with various different sort of software. And in any kind of software, first and foremost, what you should do, you need to convert your words, right, or data that you have captured in alphabets or strings into numeric form, right? So yes, so what you can do, Siddhant, is you need to code your companies as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in numeric. Siddhant, do I make myself clear? Okay. Have everybody downloaded Stata? Siddhant, have you downloaded Stata? It is working. Is it working on your laptop? Okay, what we'll do first, please take 5 minutes, take a couple of minutes to actually convert your data into a numeric form, right? So please convert your data, convert the company as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so if you are having Mac, then it will be an issue. It's only working. This is the Windows. I hope others who have Windows, this must be working. So is it working for other people? Anybody who is actually able to download and make it work? Otherwise, I think it'll be less fun. But nonetheless, if you can do that, please do that. Please download. Otherwise, I'll show you how to work. But it should work for those who have Windows. It should download very easily and it should work, right? But before we start working on the data, I would want you to actually code your data. So please code. So I'll give you an example of coding the data. We actually don't need it for Stata, but we do need it for all sort of other software where you do any sort of analysis. So I'll just give you an example. How does data coding work? Right? So if you see my screen, I've actually shared IPSA. I've actually shared the data properly. You can ask from me, but I'll share it again. I'll share it again for you. IPSA, is it? Wait, let me first close this. Yeah. Let me share the data again for people who, yeah. IPSA, is the IT sector data visible to you now? Is the IT sector data visible to you? Yeah. So now that it's visible, let me just, I'll use 2 data files to actually tell you how to, first of all, clean or make your data more accessible. So let me first open the Excel file again. Yeah, so I have the Excel file in front of me. I'll again just share my screen. Yeah, so if you see any software, regardless of the software or the analysis that you're doing, no software will be able to actually capture any sort of data that is in strings, right? So what you do, you need to code this data. So what you do, find, replace this for, I'm going to do two of them. You do the rest of it, right? So find what, let's say I find this, better to copy it here, and you replace it with 1. You replace all of these by 1, right? Similarly, you copy this and you replace all of this by 2, right? So similarly, what you need to do is you need to, first of all, to do any sort of analysis in any software, right? Most of the times in any software, you would need to make your data in numeric form. You need to make your data in numeric form, right? So have you got the idea what you guys need to do? Have everybody coded their data? IPSA, have you coded your data, or are you coding your data? Or Siddhant, have you coded your data, or are you still coding your data? Okay, I will take 2-3 minutes to actually code this data. Okay, Siddhant, were you able to start data? Is it working on your system? I guess Siddhant isn't here. Anybody else? Okay, you already have data. That's wonderful. Okay, what about others? I hope they also have data with them. Parasiraj, what about you? Okay, great. Josna Sehgal, Libin. Okay, please don't save the changes. Please save this as a separate file. So once you have coded your data, save it as a separate file. Save it as a separate file, right? So can I get a confirmation? How many of you have actually completed coding your data? How many have actually completed coding your data? If somebody has completed, please type yes, and then we'll go ahead. Then we'll try to go ahead with the software. Neha Biswas, Nikhat Khan, have you guys coded your data? Siddhant, have you coded your data like we are supposed to? Srivatsa R. Okay, if you have coded your data, next step, what we'll do, we'll try to import this data, right? We'll try to import this data. Now, if you code your data very good, what we'll do, we'll try to import this, right? So I'm not saving the changes, and I'll tell you why I'm not saving the changes. So yeah, now let me, yeah, can you see Stata here? So the first step that you do is you go on File and you import, right? You import, right? And obviously wherever your Excel file is saved, for in our case, the data was IT sector. So we're going to choose IT sector, right? Now, what, and you can see here, if you see here, all your variables have been imported, right? All your variables have been imported. All you need to do is click OK, right? Now, but there seems to be some error. Now, if you see, the error is that if you look at the right side of the data, you're not getting your variable names, right? You're not getting your variable names here. You're just getting the values, right? So what mistake are we doing here? While actually importing the data, I did not choose the first row as my name. So again, let's try to import again. I choose IT sector. Now make sure you check on this. Can you see this option, import first row as variable names? Check on this, right? Now, once you have checked on this, right, it's gonna rewrite your data. And now on the right side, you see, I have all the data that one needs to have, right? I have all the data that one needs to have, right? So you have company, you have here, you have age, you have ROA, you have size of the corporation, you have leverage. And MVAC is nothing but intellectual capital, and I'll be explaining these in detail, right? If you look at data here, this is the variable manager, right? Here, if you can see, it tells you about the data type. So this is string, something that data will not be able to read, right? If you look at data editor, if you see the data editor here, it is exactly the data that has been captured from your Excel, right? That has been captured from your Excel. And the red part that you see here on the left hand side is something that tells you that it is not readable, right? That you cannot read this data. You cannot read this data properly because it's a string variable, while you see all the other data that is here are in fact black, right? Are in fact black, and they do not have any issues with reading, right? The software does not have any issue with reading, right? Now, ideally, I should have coded my data and then I should have imported, but that's also not an issue. That's also not an issue. What we are going to do is we'll see, or we'll look at commands in Starter. We'll look at commands in Starter that actually help us in coding my data beforehand, right? Coding my data beforehand. For that, we just go through a small PPT to understand this. Right, is the PPT visible to all of you? Just a second. Yeah. Right. Is the PPT visible? Can somebody just confirm whether the PPT is visible to them?
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what we'll do, we'll shuttle back from the PPT to the software, right? Now, if you look here, these are the example of cross section and time series data, right? And normally, I denote anything that is in time series as YT, and I denote anything that is in cross section as yi, right? I is actually tells you about the identity, and T is actually representative of time period, right? Panel is when I have both the firm and the year here. So for here, example, we are having just countries, that is the cross section bit, and we are having time period. But if I mix both, right, firm and time, I have both your cross section and time period, right? And this makes up panel data, right? So in this data, you see, it's an example of panel data. And can somebody tell me the data that we have, data that we are looking at, IT sector, is an example of cross section or time series or panel? Can anybody tell me? The data that we are working on is an example of what? Is it a cross section data or it's a time series data? Yeah, it's a panel data. Why is it a panel data? Because you have the companies, right, which do not actually, it's not a variable that evolves over time, and you have year as well. You have year as well, right? Now, if we go ahead, right? Now, can you look at this, right? So what we are going to do, if you have data, right, these are the preliminary steps that one needs to follow, right? That these are the preliminary steps that one needs to follow, right? First of all, let's go to data. Right now you have this window of command. Is this window of command visible to all of you? It's exactly at the bottom of the software, right? It's exactly at the bottom of the software, right? So the first command that we are going to do is we are going to write eigen code equal to group. And when you're using stata, try to do this, right? Try to do this, right? So what have we done here? Okay, has everybody done this? Can everybody also emulate this? Can everybody also emulate this? Just go to your command and write eigen code. Is the starter screen not visible? Siddhant, Kashyap, can anybody confirm if this starter screen is visible to all of you? Okay. Siddhant, is the starter screen not visible to you? I see you have written something in the chat box.
No, only PPT is visible, Abhinav.
Acha, एक second. I'll share. Is it visible now? Siddhant or anybody could confirm if the
Yes, it is visible now.
right. Now, if you see the first thing you guys need to do is to write this code. Eigen code is equal to group of company, right? And you press enter. Now you see on the right side, there will be a variable, right? Code equal to group company. Now, if you see here, what has happened, in fact, if you go to data editor, right? If you go to data editor, you'll see that there's another variable that has been created, right? There's another variable that has been created in terms of code, right? In terms of code, and this variable has given some sort of number to each company. For example, what I was telling you, how we need to find in Excel and code each of these company, you can directly do it with this command. You can directly do it with this command. And once you do, you'll see that a code of 1 is attached to all values with the variable of the company name CN services, right? So code of 1 is attached to all values of the company name CN services. Now, one question that might arise, why is that when I talk about CN services, it is 1, and when I talk about HCL Infosystem, why is it not 2 and why is it 3, right? I think it's pretty commonsensical to have that doubt, that why am I moving from 1 to 3 and where is the 2? Now, the thing with Stata is that it tends to code your data. It tends to code your data in numeric form, in the numeric form in alphabetical order. So for example, after C and before H, there must be a variable name of the company, right? That must be, ideally it should be, I'm hoping that it's like that. Yeah. If you see E clerks as a company, if you see E clerks as a company, it has been coded as 2. Guys, are you understanding what I'm trying to tell you? Is it clear? What is the idea of this code? Egan code could, right? I hope the idea is clear that it will code your companies, but it will give the name of, it will take into consideration your alphabetical order, and it will attach or assign number accordingly, right? So that is the first step that you need to do, right, in Stata, right? Once you have generated the code, right? Second thing is you need to declare your data, right? Okay, is the PPT again visible? Is the PPT again visible? Okay, I think I have to share every time if I move from the PPT to, yeah. So if you look here now, so the first step that for any data is to generate your Egan code, that is your group company. And the second step is to actually declare your data set to be a panel data, right? Your data set to be your panel data. Now, how do I do that? I will again go back to my software screen, right? So I go to statistics, I go to longitudinal panel data, and I go to setup and utilities, and I declare my data set to be a panel data, right? Where your panel ID, your time variable would be your, just a second, time variable would be your year, and we are looking at panel ID, right? So panel ID was actually company, and as you can see, there is no company here, right? There is no company here. Why is that? Because like I said, Stata does not read string variables. So whatever string variable that you put across here, it will not come across. So as a proxy for that, we'll use code, right? We'll use code and we'll, right. Now you see, so there is a lot of times there's unbalanced data where if there's wide variation between the ID and year, right? And a lot of time it's balanced. So if you see, it says this data is strongly balanced, right? And it talks about time variable that ranges from 2009 to 2018, and delta, that is the change between time variable, is a unit. So there's a unit change, unit year change that is happening between these time variable, right? If has everybody done this? Is everybody able? Okay. Siddhant, what exactly do you want me to explain? If you tell me, I'll explain it again. I see you have written something on the chat box. If you clarify what exactly do you want me to explain it once again, I will do this once again. Siddhant Kashyap, are you there? I see you. Okay, declare data to be panel data part. Okay. So, Siddhant, what do? You just go to statistics, you go to longitudinal data, and you go to setup and utilities, and then you just click on declare data set to be panel data. Okay. Are we clear with this? Siddhant, do I clarify your doubt, or do you want me to run through it again? Okay. So I hope everybody has now understood that how do I import data? How do I code my data? Either I code it in Excel, but Stata allows you, has this command that actually helps you code this data, all string variables as a numeric code. Only catch is that you'll have to remember that whatever variable that you have put in your company name, they would be coded in a alphabetical order, right? So once you have done this, once you have coded your data, once you have imported your data, once you have declared your data to be a panel data, right? What we'll do, we'll follow certain next steps. We'll follow certain next steps. And again, I'll go back to share my PPT. Again, I'll go back here. Now, if I see here, so the very first thing with any data is to actually check or actually report something that you call descriptive statistics, something that you call descriptive statistics. So yeah, so sorry, I think there was some issue with the my desktop. It got disconnected. But what I think we were at where I was telling how exactly the first thing that you need to do is actually code your data. I'll again go back, and now we'll try to look at descriptive statistics, right? We'll try to look at descriptive statistics. How exactly in Stata I can check descriptive statistics of certain variables. So I'm sharing my screen of Stata. I think most of you have already coded the data, imported the data. Now, if I go back to this, the first thing that you need to do is you need to actually go to statistics, right? And you need to actually click on summaries, tables, and test, right? You need to click on summaries, tables, and test. And when you look at summaries and descriptive statistics, you can first of all you can actually check on this summary statistics, right? And if you check on summary statistics, check your variables, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to check, let's say I'm going to check on age, and I'm going to check on return on assets, right? I'm going to check on return on assets, right? And let me click OK, right? Now, can you see the screen? Can you see the screen on Stata? It has actually summarized and given you certain basic description about your variables, right? Can you see age? Right, for age, it is telling you there are 210 observation. It tells you the mean age of your corporation. So by and large, most of the corporations that we have taken have something like 25 years, 24 and a half years of existence. It tells you the corporation that has the least years of existence, and it also tells you the corporation that has the maximum year of existence, right? Same goes for ROA, right? So ROA is again observation the 210, mean values, standard deviation, right? So standard deviation comes out to be 11 for A and 0.13. Again, it gives you minimum and maximum of, so it can give you your minimum and maximum values for all sort of variables that you have in your data set. Okay, am I clear how to come across summary statistics? Can you guys actually practice? I'll give you 5 to 10 minutes on your software. Can you actually calculate summary statistics for all the variables that are there, right? So I want you to do two things. Take 5 minutes, try to, without coding your data in Excel, import this, generate the IGEN code, right? And then look at the summary statistics for all the variables that you have taken in your data set, right? So we'll break for 5 minutes. We'll just take 5 minutes and we will actually just do this descriptive statistics for all the variables that are there. Okay, so I hope all of you have been able to actually use Stata to come up with summary variables. Were you able to do that easily? Anybody stuck anywhere in any of the variables? Please let me know. Guys, can you guys confirm? Like, otherwise, I think I would not know where we are heading. So can people just confirm if they are able to summarize the variables, if they are able to actually get summary statistics, basic statistics of variables? So I want people to actually confirm. Next few exercises, I will ask you to, okay, can you guys, can you, on your chat box, can you also attach screenshots? Is it possible for you guys to do that? Yeah, great. So actually, I expect people to give me screenshot of their data, of their screenshot of their data results, right? So what you're going to do, everybody, please, one by one, start in the chat box, start uploading the screenshot of your data results, right? Summary statistics of certain variables, right? Maybe I can just randomly start quizzing people so that they are more alert. So they are actually more participative. So IPSA, have you uploaded your screenshot here? Okay, you have. What about Srivatsa R? Srivatsa R, were you able to actually find the summary statistics on Stata? Is Srivatsa R here? Srivatsa isn't here, or what? Okay, what about okay, Shipra, what about you? Shipra Barua has sent. Okay, Siddhant Kashyap has sent. Okay, great. Okay, now I'll ask a simple question before we actually go ahead, before we do a more of data visualization, before of data analysis, etc. do you want us, we'll take probably half an hour, 40 minutes to cover certain statistical techniques that are being applied, some theoretical knowledge about whether correlation actually means causation or stuff like that. Is it fine if we go through the theoretical, or should we directly jump to Stata and start doing data analysis? If you guys can just write on the chat box, if we can take half an hour, 10 minutes to talk about variables, what are ordinal variables, how to look at variables, right? So that you have a better understanding if you're going to work on any sort of research, etc. What do you guys want us to do? Is it fine if we cover certain basics of stats, certain key basics of statistical things that we are going to do? Is it fine? Can anybody just confirm, or should we directly jump to data analysis? I just don't want it to be very overwhelming for you guys, right? So in the chat box, do tell me whether we should actually directly jump to beyond descriptive statistics and go to data visualization, or should we take one quick session on actually covering certain basics of statistics so that you actually know what exactly you are doing, what exactly you're finding out, right? Can anybody just confirm? Siddharth Kashyap, what do you think? Or Shipra Barua, what do you think? What should we cover the basics of theory of that? Some basics will be fine. Shipra Barua saying directly go to session on ordinal variables. Okay. Okay, so we'll talk about variables. What about others? Can others also tell me a bit? Should we cover certain basics of statistics? I think that will be helpful, insightful before we actually talk about things like, okay, what are we going to do? I think few of you have said that we should actually talk about a bit of basics. So what we are going to do, actually I found this interesting slide that actually covers certain basics of statistics. So before we actually go back to Stata, what we'll do, we'll try to actually look at certain basics, right? Certain basics. So just give me a second. Let me open that slide. And I think for the next 1 hour or next 40 minutes, not 1 hour. For the next 40 minutes, we'll try to actually, talk about certain basics that I feel we should be comfortable with. We should be comfortable with while getting our hands on data analysis, right? So let me share my screen. Right. Is the PPT visible? Is the PPT visible? Can somebody just confirm?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay.
It
Right.
is showing topics covered and all that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we are going to do, we are going to just, before we actually start doing all of this on Stata, I want everybody to have a hands-on knowledge what these terms might actually mean. A lot of people try to, have even confusion basic correlation and causation. So I don't want that confusion when we are coming up with results. I think most of us are aware that, statistics are broadly in two types. What the screenshot that you guys just shared on the chat box were in fact something like descriptive statistics, right? And we are going to talk about inferential statistics. So when we run regression, when we test hypothesis, we would be talking about inferential statistics, right? And I think all of you are aware of population sample parameter statistics, right? So parameters are something that we try to actually talk about the whole population. But what we are, when we do research, we are probably really reconsidering statistics, right? Somebody had asked me, I think somebody was asking about variables. right? I think Shri Vatsa or somebody was asking, who was asking about some sort of variables, about ordinal variables, right? So I also wanted to actually talk about this when it comes to coding of data, right? So when you have variables that are qualitative, for example, sex, marital status, eye color, etc. For data, again, we need to actually code these data, right? So again, for data, we'll actually have to code these data. For example, if it's a male or a female, etc., you'll have to give them values, right? So whenever you have a data set, again, you'll have to give them values. For example, you can give you'll have to replace all your let's say string variables of male with 1, and let's say replace all the female with 2. So you'll have to actually do something like that. Similarly goes for marital status. So if you have something in your research, if you have 3 sort of categories, let's say single, married, and your third category is either separated, divorced, widowed, whatever, right? You club them in the 3 categories, then you'll have to code them 1, 2, or 3. Just like in this example, in this data software, how just to give you just how we wrote a command eigen code for company. You'll have to write eigen code for your gender, eigen code for everything else, right? And similarly, you'll have to figure out whether your data is continuous or there are discrete, right? Whether they are continuous or discrete really depends on the kind of questionnaire that you are designing. So most times, I think when we are talking about primary research, and when you are measuring anything on a Likert scale, right? When you're measuring anything on a Likert scale, where you have normally 5 responses, or normally people use a 5 Likert scale. Some people also use a 7-point Likert scale, right? When you're using that, again, you'll have to code your data and it goes from unhappy to happy. So basically, if you are let's say less likely or less happy, or you agree less, you normally code them 5. You normally, if you code them 1, sorry, and if you are highly agreeing to something, you're very likely, you code them as 5. So just like we coded the companies in primary data, please make sure that you code them from 1 to 5 on the Likert scale. Right now, somebody was asking, I think there was a question about ordinal scales, right? That could be ordinal scale. Nominal and ordinal. I think who had asked that question? Let me go on the chat box. Sri Vatsa, yeah. So you had asked about ordinal variables. So again, for example, nominal variables are very distinctive. Like you can categorize them very distinctively, right? And they do not have a set pattern of, let's say, order to them. For example, it's either male or female. There is no set order in the set that when you move from male to female, there is some sort of degree. Does not happen. Again, binary responses, if you have those are normally put in nominal scales. Now, you cannot basically in nominal scales, there's no ordering of variables. There is no ordering of variables. You cannot say male would be put at a higher category than female, or female would be put at a higher category on males. But an ordinal scale has some sort of order. Now, what do I mean by that? If you have a variable that is on an ordinal scale, it would mean that you can put some sort of degree or intensity on that scale. For example, if you talk about climate, right? Climate, you can put some sort of order in that categorization. In nominal scale, there is no categorization in terms of variables, right? In terms of variables. Now, with that idea in mind, I want everyone to actually go back. Let's try to look at our data again. I'll share this data screen. Right. Pooja, is the status screen visible?
Yes, yes, status screen is visible. I
Okay.
just want to tell you that I think you also take a break for 5 minutes after this, and students also take a break of 5 minutes. No, because it's more than an hour, and so that everything is
right. So and Pooja, is this screen also visible?
yes,
The-
yes, yes. Screen is visible. Screen is
The data screen where you have company name, code name.
yes,
or-
yes, yes.
Okay.
It's perfectly visible.
So we'll take a break of 5 minutes, but before that, I want you to actually, I want everybody to actually think what kind of scales is our data on, right? And I don't expect you to be right or wrong. There can be small confusion, but we just studied about scales. So what we can do is just think in this data that we have imported on Stata, I want you to think, I think now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have roughly 8 variables. So what kind of scales do these uh, variables fall into? What category, right? What category? Are they discrete? Are they? And put it on a Word document and please upload them on your chat. We'll break and we'll meet in 5-10 minutes, right? And then we'll try to run Stata for graphical representation for data visualization.
Very nice.
Okay.
Students, it gives you an insight, whether you are right or wrong, as Mr. Paul said. But please, try to go through whatsoever you have input. So it gives you a hand on then while analyzing data, what kind of data, what things we can do, right? So you do this, and then we can have a 5-10 minutes break, right? All right.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess some of you or most of you would have by now categorized the data that we have been covering in Stata in some forms. Can somebody tell me how have they categorized, or could they upload the Word doc in which they have categorized the variable in particular form? Okay, let me ask just okay, what do you think the data for company uh, would be? Would it be a nominal data, or could it be actually be classified as ordinal data? Could anybody? Varun Muddata says nominal. Anybody else? Would anybody else like to try? Would it be a nominal data or would it be ordinal data, right? So by and large, there can be confusion between nominal and ordinal, right? Normally, I also feel company should be nominal data, but someone might just argue that, companies have different size, or company have different sort of investments or financial prowess, and one can also rank them, right? But by and large, such subjectivity would always be there in nominal and ordinal, right? But in certain types of variables, but by and large, company should be nominal data, right? Now, what we are gonna do is, again, we'll just talk about a bit of descriptive statistics and correlation. So we're gonna talk about correlation here, right? We'll try to look at how exactly in data we are able to find the correlation between various variables that you are using in your study. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll again try to share my screen of startup. Right. So I hope the screen is visible. Now what we are going to do is let's go to statistics. Let's go to statistics, and we have already in fact done summary statistics. Those who were not able to do or those who not, I'll just give a quick recap of summary statistics. This is age ROA. All you do is you plug all the other variables as well, right? Okay, right. And now you see this this command will actually throw up all the values that are pertinent to these variables with their observation, mean, standard deviation, minimum values, and maximum values, right? Now, similarly, if I want to see correlation, right? If I want to see correlation, what will I do? I'll just go to statistics, summary and descriptive statistics, and I will click on pairwise correlation, right? I will click on pairwise correlation, and let me select these values. Let me select age, ROA, size. Company being a string variable, obviously we cannot check for correlation there. No point of checking correlation with companies. It does not make sense. And MVAC. Now MVAC, some of you, let me also explain what are these variables. So age is obviously the number of years of existence of the company. ROA is a return on asset. So how much asset the company is having and what are the capital returns that one is able to generate. Size is again the amount of financial wealth the company is having, and leverage, as we know, is the money that has been taken for borrowing. Then MVAC is actually a proxy variable for intellectual capital. It probably means how much money the company has been spending on its employees, etc. for their in academics, for example, would be how much money universities are spending on faculty development programs, etc. Similarly, training programs, employment generation, employment upskillment of existing employees, etc. That would be the amount of money. Similarly, infrastructure, money spent on, let's say, proper desks, computers of employees, etc. will also come under MVAC. Now, let's say I run this. Right, I run this. Okay. Can you see this table? Can you see this table that has been generated? Can somebody just confirm that over chat? Can they see this table? Yeah. So you see the diagonal values are all 1. Can you see this? These diagonal values are all 1, right? Is everybody able to see the diagonal values in the table that have come, that has been shown, are all 1, right? Can somebody tell me why is that? Why are the diagonal values all 1? Because obviously variables would have perfect correlation with each other, right? The same variables with itself So Ipsa Khanna is actually right that all variables obviously would show perfect correlation, and ideally in what we should actually see, the dependent variables that are there, at least the dependent variable should not be highly correlated with each other, right? In any research, we check that the dependent variable that we are taking should not be highly correlated. So the correlation values of dependent variables in the research should in fact not be very high. Can you tell me why is that? Why should I prefer the dependent variables of any sort of study, any sort of model to not be very highly correlated? Any idea why? Could anybody answer? Could anybody try to answer again? I'm not looking for the right answer. I'm actually as much a student as you guys. So broadly, we are just looking at any sort of discussion that we can have over over this exercise as well. So why is that these correlational values of dependent variables should not be very high? Ipsa, any idea? Or Siddhant Kashyap, any idea? Or Varun Muddada? Would anybody like to volunteer or type? Okay, so if nobody's volunteering, the idea is very simple. The idea is that you should not, if your dependent variables are highly correlated, then there is no point having so many variables, right? I mean, they're probably telling us the same thing, right? About that independent, if these variables are dependent on each other, if the independent variables are too dependent on each other, right? They are really not churning the right result, right? So, okay, so now that we have learned how to actually come at correlation, what we are going to do, we'll look at certain visualization. We'll look at certain visualization that we can produce in Stata, right? Now, you can come up with a lot of data visualization in Stata, but it's very important to know which visualization you should use for what kind of data, right? So what kind of visualization or what kind of bar graph, whether I should use a pie graph, whether I should use a histogram, is something that we should be very aware of, that we should be very aware of, right? So what we'll do, we'll go back to that PPT where we were talking about data, we're talking about the slides, right? So just give me a minute, I'll share. Yeah. Right. So can you look at the slide that says describing data? Can somebody just confirm? Yeah, describing data. Right. Now, it's very important to understand what should be the right way of describing data. So if you use a bar graph for quantitative data, it will not make any sense if your data is too large, right? So normally when we have qualitative data, again, what is qualitative data? Qualitative data is your, by and large, nominal and ordinal data, right? Nominal and ordinal data is actually your qualitative data, right? Now, best thing to do for describing qualitative data is to probably choose something like a pie chart or a bar graph, right? Pie chart or a bar graph. In our data set, we have too many companies. And hence we'll see whether we should use a pie chart or bar graph. Similarly, when we are talking about quantitative data. Quantitative data are best described when you talk about, when you probably want to use histogram or a bar graph, right? When you have various class intervals, class frequencies, various sort of data, a histogram or a bar graph makes much more sense. So what we have already covered some of these, right? So when you're talking about correlation, standard deviation, mean, we have already actually tried to talk about summary statistics of these. I will not talk about this. We will just directly come to shape, right? The aspect of skewness and kurtosis, right? You guys have heard of skewness and kurtosis, is it? Like in your somewhere in your statistics or econometrics, probably you would have any idea what does skewness or kurtosis tell us? Would anybody like to volunteer and tell me why do I calculate skewness and kurtosis? Right. So the idea of skewness and kurtosis is by and large and majorly to actually figure out the shape of your distribution, right? And we normally prefer it to be normally distributed, right? We normally prefer it to be normally distributed. Somebody write dispersion of values of variables. So I think maybe skewness and kurtosis could also give you some idea about dispersion, IPSA, but I think for dispersion, normally you check for standard deviation and variances. Aren't they a better source of measuring dispersion? IPSA, again, just an idea. Okay. I could be wrong as well, but I'm trying to figure out, isn't standard deviation a better measure for dispersion, right? That's what I think. But anyway, I could be wrong also. But by and large, I think measures of dispersion, things like these. IPSA, are you able to see this? Your question, your answer actually lies here. So range, interquartile range, and standard deviation and variance actually are a better measure to see how varied is your data from the mean, right? And when you look out skewness and kurtosis, it tells you in fact what is the shape of your data. So I hope that is clear. So with that in mind, and we'll look into other things in a bit. Let's try to do whatever we have studied right now on Stata. So let us go back to the software. We'll go back to the software. Right. So we are back to the software. And now I'm gonna tell you how do we visualize the data in the software, and whatever project or what you're doing, you can directly copy paste this diagram and just put it in your Word or etc. Instead of doing a lot of hard work in Excel. Stata makes it very, very easy, right? Stata makes it very, very easy, right? Is the software screen visible? Is the software screen visible? Now I want everybody to actually pay close attention, right? Now to visualize the data, please go to graphics, right? Please go to graphics. And I am going to actually look at pie chart, right? I am going to look at pie chart. Is everybody with me here? Is everybody with me? Have you understood how to come to pie chart? Go to graphics, go to pie chart, and then graph by categories, right? So one will be your category variable, right? And normally, okay, it makes sense to have either your company or your code as your category variable. Now, let's say I want to check, I want to see the age I want to see the age of the companies to be put forth, on a pie chart, right? So what I do, my category variable is company, and we are going to categorize this category variable with the number of years of their existence, right? So let's say I do this. It takes a bit of time, but can you see this graph? Can you guys see this graph that we have just got? Can anybody please confirm? Right. So you see here, very, very simply, if you need to actually, you can save this image. You can also, I think, copy this image, right? You can go to graph editor and you can actually put a title here, or right, you can put a title here, and let's say text, the company, age, right, and put it here, right? So if you look here, and obviously you can do a lot of other things, right? I'm not going to get into that, but I've just used the graphics to give a very simple idea how you can put forward your data in graphical form, right? Your data in graphical form. Let's try to do few other things with graphics. Let's try to do few other things in graphics. Let's try to yeah. I can also, okay, so there is something that you call a line or a scatter graph, right? Any idea why do we use a scatter graph? Any idea why do I use a scatter graph or a line graph? Nonetheless, we'll try to look here. Let's say I'm looking at age, or let's say I'm looking at ROA, and I'm trying to look at that with age, right? The age of the company. And let's see how that comes across, right? So, actually, we have already done, I took out one graph previously. So you can ignore the one with the blue line. But if you look at the red ones, right, then doesn't seem to be a very, very high correlation, right? Seems to be a very mixed correlation between the age of the company and the return on assets. Guys, can you see the scatter graph? Can you see the scatter graph for ROA and age? Can anybody just confirm? Is the graph visible to you? Again, in this graph, again, you can actually make titles have any sort of improvement, right? Similarly, what we'll do, we'll try to look at few more visualizations that we can do here. Let's go to graphics. Right. Right, you can actually choose a lot of bar or a line, etc. All of these. You can also actually choose to make bar charts which compares, let's say, mean, right? So let's say if you have frequencies within category, percent of frequencies, but we have not made categories, graph of actual data, right? But we can actually do a graph of summary statistics, right? So if you want to actually check for mean, right? And let's say I also want to check for mean of leverage, right? And maybe I also want to check mean of size, right? Okay. Are you able to see this bar chart as well? Are you able to see this bar chart as well that actually provides you some sort of idea about the mean of these variables that you can actually graphically probably visualize here, right? So you see there are a couple of things that you can do, right? So instead of going to Excel and plugging in values making graph, what you can do is just plug in the data once in Stata and try to uh, try to uh, see how it goes. And there's a box plot that you can do. Again, if I see ROA and if I choose age, right? Let's see if there's a meaningful box plot that actually comes, right? So a lot of plots, a lot of visualizations that can happen. I want you to, what we do, given that we have understood some aspect of visualization, take 5-10 minutes, and try to upload any visualization that you think makes sense, right? All of these other things, try to look at dot, pie, histogram, box, contour, scatter plot, two-way graphs, right? Try to upload in 5-10 minutes, right? Whatever data visualization that you think is something that is meaningful to you, right? So what we'll do, we'll give you 5-10 minutes. Once you're done, upload it on the chat box, right? Upload it on the chat box. Guys, please try to upload any sort of visualization that you feel makes sense. So to give you some idea, try to see scatter plots if there are high correlation between something, if there are bar graphs that give you some sort of idea of summary statistics. Try to visualize that data, whatever you have, right? If you go to graphics, you'll have various techniques to use. For example, you can use a pie for something like a company, and how much is it putting in as, or how much is it investing in its intellectual capital or human capital. So if you do that, right? Okay, can you see the pie chart here? Can you see the pie chart here? Right. Is somebody able to see this pie chart that shows you companies and the amount of money that they are putting as intellectual capital? So I want everybody to take 5-10 minutes to come up with something meaningful, some sort of meaningful visualization that they think that they can actually generate from this data. Okay, all the participants, please do come up with some visualization. I don't know, IPSA, Siddhant has already sent some visualization. Varun Muddata, Srivatsa, Shilpa, right? Please do attach some sort of visualization. Whoever, Rashi, right? Try to send some visualization so that I know that you've got some idea how to visualize your data, right? So I'll give you 5 to 10 minutes to do that. 5 to 10 minutes to actually try practicing visualization of data. Okay. I guess now most of you are clear with data visualization. I hope. Anybody has any doubt in data visualization? How to visualize your data on Stata? Are we clear with that? Could anybody confirm? Srivatsa, are you clear? IPSA, anybody else? How do I present data in graphs, in charts, in pie charts, etc. Right? And what kind of data? Either qualitative data should always be preferred to put in a pie chart, right? And if you have quantitative data, etc., try to use bar graphs, histograms, things like that. So I think the function is pretty easy to actually implement on Stata. The interface is nice. So all you need to go is graphics, and under graphics you have all sort of plots that you can actually do, right? You can actually do. Now, now that we are done, I think we have covered today coding of data. Then after coding, how to import that data. And once you have imported that data, you actually try to declare that data set, right? We try to declare that data set as a panel data, right? And once we covered all of this, we actually decided to see the graphic visualization. Now, in the next session, the session post lunch, I think for 1 hour, we'll talk about data analysis, right? Now, in data analysis, I'll be talking about regression, right? Do you guys have some idea what do I mean by a regression? So why do I regress something on the other? Could anybody tell me what does a regression exactly tell us? Any idea? Or okay, right. We did correlation also, right? We did correlation also. And what does correlation tell us? Any idea? What does correlation tell us? So I think correlation and regression, I think it's important to know the difference, right? Have some sort of basic understanding. So correlation is like tasty food is costlier, right? So restaurants that have tasty foods have higher charges for those foods. But that does not mean if you increase the prices of the food, your food will become tasty, right? So tasty food and high prices are correlated, are highly correlated. But we cannot say there is a causation. It's not like high prices are causing the taste of the food to be better, right? Do I make this clear? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Can somebody actually just tell me on the chat? Do I make the idea of correlation clear, and why it should never be seen as causation? IPSA, Srivatsa, Siddhant, do I make any sense? Like, what am I saying right now? Oh, yeah, right. So you get it. I think so. Most of you get the idea that correlation should not be and to find out causation, actually to some extent, to find out causation, we try to run a regression, right? We try to run a regression, right? So just before we actually talk about running regression on Stata, it's very important that we understand certain inferential statistics, basics of inferential statistics, right? So to make you understand that, we'll just go with this slide, this PPT that we have been talking about, right? So okay, we already talked about, so by and large, when we do any sort of test in Stata, we are trying to look at hypothesis, right? And normally your hypothesis is something that you make to check whether your data is agreeing with certain predictions. And these predictions are something that you call hypothesis, right? Now, it is when you use these significance tests, t-test, ANOVA, etc., these are all done to check whether a particular hypothesis is being supported or it's not being supported, right? And it basically tends to capture the significance of a relationship. And if whenever we have to contradict our null hypothesis, our p-value, and p-value is a probability, right, that the test statistic, whatever you are using, the statistic calculated from sample data to test the null hypothesis, right? So when p-value is less than 0.05, you say that you are having a contradiction of your null hypothesis, and there can be errors, right? So the first error is commonly known as type 1 error, where you reject the right or the true null hypothesis, and a type 2 error where you accept a false null hypothesis, right? Now, normally whenever you're doing any sort of these analysis, the sample size should be at least 50, right? And there are certain tests, right? There are certain tests. So normally these are the kind of tests given whenever you are having the type of data, right? You use these types of tests, right? You choose these types of tests. Now, so these are the scale, these are the statistics that you use, and these are the tests that one should actually use given the type of data that you are using, you are comparing. ANOVA is actually a test that you use when you're comparing more than two categories, right? And t-test is between two types of categories that you use. And while post hoc is a version above ANOVA, where you use to compare differences among the various categories, right? Now, like I was saying, scatter diagrams, we just did scatter diagrams, right? And whenever you're trying to visualize whenever you're trying to visualize, always put on a scatter diagram your dependent on the y-axis. You're dependent on the y-axis and independent should be on the x-axis, right? Your dependent should be on the y-axis and your independent should always be on the x-axis. Again, like I said, correlation only talks about association, right? Only talks about association, and here the value of it should be from sorry, excuse me, the value normally ranges from -1 to +1. Now again, with regard to correlation, I just want to talk a bit about data visualization. Let me go back to startup and let me again share the screen. Now you can see we have already captured the correlation of these variables. Everything that is positive, it shows high level of association, high levels of association that have been there, right? What we're gonna do, we're gonna look at a two-way scatter. We've already done that. But nonetheless, just to tell you what you should be careful about, what you should be careful about. Right. So I'm creating another plot. Right. I'm creating a basic scatter plot. Right. Basic scatter plot. Now, what did it say? You're dependent on the y variable. Right. So let's say I am trying to see if my return on assets of the company has any relation with MWAC. So whether if I keep on increasing my money spent on intellectual capital, etc., which is measured by MWAC here, will it have an impact? Or you cannot check impact. So sorry, my bad. No question of checking impact. But is there a tight association? Is there a tight association, right? So let's say I do this. I try to calculate a two-way scatter. It takes a bit of time. As you can see this right. Yeah. Forget. So can anybody interpret? Can anybody try to interpret this scatter plot? Does it tell us about anything? Anything? Okay, let me come to graph editor and let me put title. ROA. Okay. Would anybody like to try? What is this graph telling us? Can I have some sort of, any sort of idea from this? Okay, Siddhant says there's a positive correlation. Okay, anything else? Anything else? Okay, Siddhant, why do you say it's a positive correlation? And what made you say it's a positive correlation? I'm just asking. Okay, Sri Vatsa, any idea? What do you think? Sri Vatsa or IPSA? If you look at this graph, Okay, fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Right? Positive values of MBAC is leading to some sort of increase in values of ROA. Okay, fair enough. But majority of the data is, let's say, concentrated here. So, Siddharth, can I say again, and I can be wrong, and if you feel that I'm saying something absurd, please point out. So, can I also say that as MBAC rises, yes, ROA is rising. We can see ROA is high when MBAC is rising, but majority of it concentrated is here. So basically, could it mean that they are tightly associated till probably MBAC is rising till 7 or 8, right? ROA also rise, but when MBAC is rising too much, I don't see values too much here, right? So is it fair to say that this positive correlation is very tight at slightly lower values of MBAC than at higher values of MBAC? So it's a positive correlation, but is it a strong correlation? It's a positive correlation, but is it a strong correlation according to you? How many of you feel that? I want you in the chat box, right? Positive, but okay, positive but weak. Fair enough, fair enough. Okay, how would a strong correlation look like, right? How would a strong correlation might have looked like? Any idea on a graph? Okay, what we'll do, let's try to experiment a few of more scatter diagrams, right? Let's try to few of more. So, this, so it means that when MBAC is rising to a point, there is some sort of let's try to look at here. Let's try to look at the correlation values rather. Okay. Guys, can you see this correlation values that we had computed? Can anybody confirm? Is the correlation values that we had computed visible to you? Yes. Okay. What is the value of correlation between MBAC and ROA? What is the value of correlation between MBAC and ROA? Can anybody tell me? What is the value of correlation between MBAC and ROA on the software? The results क्या है? क्या आया है? Correlation value. अरे अभी तो निकाला है यार. What is the value? क्या है? ROA और MBAC ये होगा ना? Won't this be your value? Yeah, 0.1441. Now, 0.1441. Yeah, right. So I think, yeah, Rajat Gautam, right? Yeah. So, up 0.14 is a positive number. Am I correct? Right? That means there is a positive correlation, definitely. There is a positive correlation, definitely. But is it very high? Value of correlation, it exists from -1 to 1. Right? -1. What is the -1? What does the value of -1 correlation tell us about two variables? अगर किसी को, if two variables have -1 as value, right, of correlation value is -1, how do I interpret it? Perfectly negatively correlated, right? Or +1 I feel. What if it's +1? What if it's +1? And what if it's +1? Perfectly positive correlated, right? Now, MBAC and ROA are positively correlated, but they are not, that's a very, not a strong correlation, right? And that's why you see that graph the way it is. Is the graph and the values, do they now make some sense? Are you able to make some sense with the graph and the value that we just computed? Can somebody just confirm? Can somebody just confirm? Are you able to correlate the scatter diagram and the value that we see here? Alright guys, tell me, otherwise we won't know where we are heading. At least respond and tell me, are you able to get some idea between the value and the graph? Okay. Now, for example, I see age and size. Age and size. Age and size plays a mildly strong correlation. If you look, it's a 0.5, right? So let's try to see when we plot age and size, how does it look like, right? Let me first close that graph. Let's try again. You go to two-way scatter, right? And I disable this. I create another plot. Let's say I want to create a scatter, and let's say I have size, and I'm saying as I age, the size of the firm will increase. Seems very logical. And let's try to see how does it look like. Right. Now, can you see this scatter, right? So as we are aging, size is actually increasing. There's a good overlap even for higher sizes. Obviously, it's a positive correlation. It's not as concentrated just at one part. It is a bit more linear. And it is reflective of this, right? It is reflective of these values. It's reflective of these values. So always try to look at scatter plots and try to correlate with them. Try to correlate that scatter plots, for example, this scatter plot with the values of correlation matrix that you have actually created, Okay. Are we clear with what I have just taught right now? I mean, are you clear with this idea, the graph and the values and how to look at them and what do they tell, right? And are we also clear that correlation does not imply causation, right? For causation, we need to regress, and we'll talk about that in the session post lunch. Now, I think let's break for lunch, but before we actually break for lunch, I want you to take 10 minutes, take 5 to 10 minutes and look at the scatter plot of all these variables, right? Just like we made for ROA and thing, I want you to look and I want you to look at the scatter plot or of all the negative correlation between the variables, and you post it on the chat, right? You post it on the chat, right? So till now we have been talking only about positively correlated and variables. I want you to look at also the variables that are in fact negatively correlated and message on the chat, attach the screenshot of the same.
Yeah, Abhinav sir, I hope the pre-lunch session you are done with. Can we have a lunch break now? Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible? Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, I think you are done with the basic data presentation visualization that we have planned for the pre-lunch. Now
Yes,
we
ma'am,
can
yes,
have
ma'am.
a lunch break because you, along with the students, have a long session for 3 hours. So we can have
Yeah.
a 1 hour lunch break and then we'll meet at 2:15. All right, my dear students, you all are not supposed to leave the session. We can take a 1 hour break. I'll tell the IT people to stop recording for the session.
Yeah, ma'am. Okay,
See you,
ma'am.
sir.
Thank you.
After a break, we'll meet
Yeah.
at 2:15.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Well, could somebody just...
Yes, Mr. Pal, you are audible. Just give me a moment. I'll tell the IT person to start recording the session.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Recording start kar diya. You can start, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, right. So in the previous session, we talked about how to import data, how to code data, and how data does not read string variables. And then we saw the kind of variables that there are: nominal, ordinal, how to represent them, right? How ideally pie chart makes more sense for such types of data, and how for contour data, things like histogram bar would make more sense. Now, what are we gonna do is, we also saw scatter plots and correlation values, how to come up with correlation values, etc., for various variables that are there. Now, in this section, what we are going to do is we'll try to look at regression. We'll try to look at regression, how exactly for panel data we run a regression, right? We run a regression, and we also discussed how correlation differs from regression, and what are the key steps that are involved, right, when we try to run regression in Stata. And I think this should not take very long. And in the end, to end this session, or to end this whole session, I'll be giving you a fresh data set. And for 15-20 minutes, you run everything that we have done, run everything that we would have done, right from importing coding to running various summary statistics, various correlation, graphical representation, and eventually regression. And tell me whether the assumptions of regression, etc., whether they make sense or not for that data set. And in the end, we'll do a quick, I think we'll do certain MCQs that would be pertinent to whatever we have covered today, right? So I'll share my screen. I'll share my screen. We'll go to panel data, right? We'll go to, right. So is this PPT visible? Can somebody just confirm? Is the PPT? Yeah. So if the PPT is visible, I think we have done all of this. We have done agent code. We have declared the data to be parallel. We have come up with descriptive strategy. We have also found correlation. Right now, talking about the next step. Yeah. So let's say a parallel data regression is like this, right? Parallel data regression is like this. So depth var IT, right? I and T are basically denoting that's both cross section and a time series regression that we are trying to run here, right? So if you look, depth var represents your dependent variable, right? So depth var refers to your dependent variables, and beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, and beta 4 are what? Okay, so just out of curiosity, what does beta 1, let's say, and IDV would stand for independent first independent variable. Similarly, IDV 2, second independent variable, IDV 3, third, and IDV 4, the fourth independent variable. Now, basically, I want to ask, what does the beta in a regression equation tell us? Could somebody probably tell me what does a beta in a regression equation tell us? Would anybody like to volunteer and tell me what is the significance of beta in a regression equation? IPSA, any idea? What does a beta in a regression equation tell us? Okay, Farah Siraj says coefficient. Okay, great. So coefficient. What does the coefficient tell us? Any idea what does the coefficient tell us? Okay, fine. It's the regression coefficient. Very nice. What does the coefficient tell us? How do I interpret? Okay, let's say if a coefficient is 0.4, if a coefficient value or a path coefficient, like you say, okay, they tell us with 1% increase in dependent variable, how much percent? Okay, if so is saying they tell us that with 1% increase in how much? Okay. Anyone else? Could anybody else try? Could anyone else try? So if I say, let's say the beta coefficient of independent variable 1 is 0.4, how do I interpret the 0.4? Anybody? Siddhant, do you want to try? Siddhant Kashyap. Okay, so the idea is very simple. Right. So yeah, Farah Siraj has actually probably got the answer that if there's a unit change, if there's one unit change in your independent variable, there will be a 0.4 change in your dependent variable. That's what the beta coefficient before any independent variable actually tell us, right? That's what the beta coefficient before any independent variable actually tell us. Now, these beta coefficients should be significant. Basically, when I use the word significant, they should have p-values that are lower than 0.05. So for a 95% confidence interval, they should have p-values that are lesser than 0.05. Now, to make you understand this, what we'll do, let's try to run a regression, right? Now, the very first thing that you do when you try to run a regression in Stata is that you check for certain assumptions, right? You check for certain assumptions. Now, what are these assumptions? These are called diagnostic tests, right? These are called diagnostic test. So you check for something that you call stationarity, homoscedasticity, multicollinearity, and autocorrelation, right? Whenever you have time series data or a panel data, you check for these things, right? So what does the unit root test tell us? It checks for stationarity, that the variances, covariance between the time period zero, there's constant mean and there's constant variance, right? Now, first of all, what do? Whenever you have a balanced panel data, you try to check for Levin-Lin-Chu test, right? Levin-Lin-Chu test, and you check for, and for this test, the null hypothesis says the panel contains unit root, and your alternative hypothesis is that panels are stationary, right? So in order for us to move forward for running the regression, panels should contain, right? Or panels should not be non-stationary. Panels should be stationary. So this test p-value should be less than 0. So we have to reject the null hypothesis, right? So what do? We try to run the regression on Strata. I'm gonna do that now, right? Please look at the steps that we are following, right? Please follow the steps that we are following. Okay. Can you see the screen of the software? Can you see the screen of the software? Yeah. So first thing, quite simply, just go to statistics, right? Once you've gone to statistics, go to longitudinal panel data. Go to longitudinal panel data. After going to longitudinal panel data, check at the second last option. That is the unit root test. Click on unit root test. Now, test is Levin-Lin-Chu, like we have just decided. And you check your variable as return on asset, right? You're gonna check for return on asset, right? So let's try to look at the values of Levin-Lin-Chu for ROI. And it's gonna compute, it's gonna take some time. Now, can you see the results here? Is everybody able to see the result here of the test? IPSA, are you able to see the result of the test on Stata? Okay. Now, in our PPT, right, the idea is p-value, we need to reject the hypothesis. Basically, we need to reject panels contain unit roots. Basically, we need to accept the alternative panels are stationary. So when we reject that, our p-values should be less than 0.00. And here our p-values are again lesser than 0.05, and hence panels are stationary, right? The panels are stationary. I will again tell you the steps again. Idea is you choose statistics, right? Then you choose longitudinal panel data. You choose unit root test. Now, those who are interested in probably publishing paper research, there can be times when this particular test does not lead to, does not tell you that this is stationary. Ideally, you can report any of these tests that actually prove your hypothesis that panels are stationary. So choose whatever test that works best for you, but theory wise, 11 Li-Chu is the most preferred because when the panel is strongly balanced, like in our case, we normally choose 11 Li-Chu test, right? Similarly, are we clear with the unit root test? How to check for stationarity, right? So once this is done, now second assumption is, let me again go back to that PPT. Second assumption is once you have checked for unit root, we are going to look at homoscedasticity, right? We're going to check for homoscedasticity, right? Now, in this case, first you need to actually first run regress the dependent variable for the independent variable, right? Regress the dependent variable with independent variable. Then we will have to check for the Prush-Pagan test, and then you check for heteroscedasticity. And in this case, we do not have to reject the null hypothesis, right? We do not have to reject the null hypothesis. Rather, we want the null hypothesis to be accepted. So whenever we are expecting the null hypothesis to be accepted, p-value should be more than 0.05, right? P-value should be more than 0.05. So what we'll do now, let's go back to the software. So here we have data. Yeah. Or I think what you can also try is something like this. Make sure this is not caps. Regress what is your dependent variable, guys? If you remember, dependent variable, what did we choose as dependent variable in the slide? ROA, right? So ROA, right? And then all your independent variables. So I think as far as I remember, ROA was dependent on MVAC, age, size, and leverage, right? So let me put here MVAC, age, size, leverage, right? So you regress, right? So you see, you've got certain values here. You've got values for ROA, MVAC, age, size, and leverage. Now, we're just merely doing this to check for homoscedasticity, right? Now you're gonna write the I have put some gaps or yeah. So what we have done is we have actually now run the Bruce-Pagan test by the command. So command for that is HE. Yeah. So once you regress, you check for HEET test, right? So that's the command. So you see what is your null hypothesis? Constant variance, right? That is what is meant by homoscedasticity, right? And to accept that, you need to have p-values of greater than 0.05. In our case, this probability is can you look at the result? Can you look at the probability of p-value? Can anybody just confirm? Are you able to look at the p-value that we have got after running for the test? Siddharth, are you able to look at the p-value? Yeah, so it's a see. Normally, whenever you're running any sort of test, your p-value should be below 0.05 to reject the null hypothesis, right? If you want to reject the null hypothesis, and if you need to show that something is significant, right, your p-value should be lesser than 0.0. But if you want to accept, or let's say, if in our case, we do not want to reject the null hypothesis, p-value should be greater than 0.05. So in the previous case, Ipsa, can you look at the, can you just tell me if you can look at the result of the Levin-Lichu test? Can you look at the results of the Levin-Lichu test on your screen? So if you can see the result of the Levin-Lichu test, you see our hypothesis for the Levin-Lichu tests are designed such as panels contain unit root, but we want stationarity, right? Now our results should be in such a way that we reject the null hypothesis and we accept the alternative hypothesis that panels are in fact stationary, right? Now for that, like I said, for us to reject the null hypothesis, p-value should be lesser than 0.05. Can you look at, and what is the p-value here? Is it lesser than 0.05 IPSA? Could you tell me? Right. So if it's less than 0.05, it also means that panels are stationary, and this is exactly what we want. We want to check for stationarity, right? And that's the reason for the unit root test, correct? Right. Similarly, for the Bruce-Pagan test, right? Let me go back to the PPT. Right. Let me just. Yeah. Ipsha, are you able to see the PPT? Ipsha Khanna. Yeah. Now, Ipsha, if you look here in this PPT, I want homoscedasticity. That is, homo means constant variance, right? Homoscedasticity is basically about constant variance between the error terms, right? So if I should ideally strive that my null hypothesis is not rejected, or whenever I do not want the null hypothesis to be rejected, my p-value should be greater than 0.05, right? My p-value should be greater than 0.05. So what I do, I go back to the screen of Stata, right? We actually checked for the homoscedasticity. The command for that is HET test, right? And here again, this is nothing but p-values. Probability is Ipsha, is the p-value greater than 0.05 here? Ipsha, is the value greater than 0.05 here, right? Since it's right, we are acceptable. It means that there is constant variance, and this is exactly what we require, right? If so, do I clarify your doubts? Are you clear? Okay, great. Now, the next step, we have checked for autocorrelation. Sorry, we have checked for your, what do you say, stationarity. We have checked for homoscedasticity. Now we need to check, right? We need to check for multicollinearity, right? Now, what do I mean by multicollinearity? Can anybody tell me what do I mean by multicollinearity? Is any idea what could be multicollinearity? Anybody would like to volunteer and tell me what does multicollinearity mean? So multicollinearity basically means आपके जो independent variables हैं, they are not too related with each other, right? They're not too related to each other. Otherwise, their significance in the regression equation is actually diluted, right? Their significance in the regression equation is in fact diluted. Now, to check for that, normally you just need to write a command VIF, right? You normally need to just write a command VIF. If you look at VIF, right? Now, when you run this VIF, you will see it is only running on your independent variables. Am I correct? Can you guys see the result for VIF here? Right? So the VIF should ideally be something that is less than 0 and should be greater than 0.1, right? So agar aapka VIF for your independent variables is coming to be less than 10 and above 0.1, right? Then we can move forward, right? Then we can move forward. There is no issue with that, right? There is no issue with that, right? Now, here again, our VIF is in fact less than 10 and greater than 0.1. Therefore, there is no multicollinearity. Now, similarly, you have a result for autocorrelation, right? You have a command for autocorrelation, but I think that is something that you need to install. It's a installation package, but what I see if it's installed here, we'll just look at it and we'll talk about that also. Basically, you need to check for 4 things, that is stationarity, homoscedasticity, multicollinearity, and autocorrelation, right? So again, you check for your dependent variables with all of your independent, so age, size, leverage, and back, right? you run, right? Uh, so here, right? Here, if you look here again, similarly, your value of your value of autocorrelation will be checked by this test HT serial, but I don't think we're getting the complete results because this is a installation package which you need to install, right? So, but by and large, there are 4 tests that you need to run before you start with a parallel data regression. Before you start with a parallel data regression. Now, once you run the parallel data regression, there are 2 types of effects that you need to check. One is something that you call random effect or fixed effect. Fixed effect is when it does not take into consideration the aspect of time, and random effect is when it actually considers the effect of time. So you'll get 2 types of result whenever you're running parallel data regression. One is fixed effect, one is random effect. Now, which results should you actually be considering is something that a test called Hausman test, right? Something that you call a Hausman test actually tell us, right? Now, let me first tell you how to run a regression. So you go to statistics, you go to longitudinal panel data, right? Go to statistics, you go to longitudinal panel data, and you choose linear regression, right? Now here again, you'll choose your dependent variable ROA, right? And you choose your independent. I think we're choosing size. And I think then there was leverage, right? Age, leverage, and MBAC. So return on asset is actually dependent on size, age, leverage, and MBAC. So first, what we are going to do, we are going to look at the fixed effect, right? We are going to look at the fixed effect. Model type is fixed effect, where we are actually not looking at the aspect of time series of time, right? And we click OK. Right, so these are the values of coefficient, right? These are the values of coefficient for these various terms. Obviously, age is insignificant if you look at the fixed effect regression, right? Now, once you have got these results, first thing you need to do is store these values. We need to actually save these results. So you write estimate store, and I'm gonna write FE. Okay, just a second. some. Yeah. Right now, when so actually a lot of times Stata is very case sensitive. So you might, whenever there's a red sort of line, probably you are not writing the code properly. So when you write estimate store FE, I have written this fixed effect, it will save these results. It will save these results. Now I am going to run the regression for random effects. That is taking in the element of time. What is the results that we are getting? So again, the idea is the same. You go to longitudinal panel data, you go to linear model, you go to linear regression, right? And your dependent. But now be careful to check for GLS random effects, right? We are gonna run for random effect. Now again, now you see, when you're taking the element of time, age is still insignificant, but so is size when you're talking about random effects. Only leverage and intellectual capital MVAC are significant, right? They have a significant coefficient towards that, and obviously leverage is negatively correlated, and I think it should be the same for fixed effect. Yeah, leverage is again negatively correlated, and while MVAC is positively correlated. Now, again, you need to save these results. So you write estimate store, and I'm going to write this RE, right? Estimate store RE. So now it has saved both the result of fixed effect and the result for random effects, both the results for fixed effects and both the result for random effect. Now, our dilemma is now which model, given our data, given our all sort of condition, which model should we actually use? Which model is more appropriate? Which kind of results are more appropriate for our research, right? So whether we're gonna report fixed effect or random effect, so we need to run a test for that, right? So test is Osman. FE was my fixed effect result, RE was my random effect result. Now, once you run this test, again, like any other test, you will be shown a p-value. Sorry. So if your p-value is greater than 0.05, you choose random effect results. If your value is less than 0.05, you choose fixed effect result. So let's try to look. Right. Now, here, our p-values is less than 0.05. And when this is the case, we try to look at, so what we are going to do, our fixed effect results are something that we are going to look at. Our fixed effect results are something that we are gonna look at. So these are our path coefficient, where the p-values, all the p-values are greater than 0.05, right? We'll have to they are insignificant. And we'll have to reject these wherever the p-values are probably greater than that, or you can look at t statistics 1.96. The absolute value should be greater than 1.96, right? So whether you're gonna use the fixed effect result or the random effect result is something that you would have to decide on the basis of. Okay, Hausman test. IPSA, you have a doubt. So IPSA, you want me to tell what is the relevance of Hausman test, is it? Basically, you want to know what is the hypothesis for Hausman test, right? Yeah. So null hypothesis is that random effect is appropriate for this model, right? Null hypothesis, that is H naught, is that your random effect is appropriate for this model, and alternative hypothesis is fixed effect is appropriate for this model. Now, if obviously, if let's say if this p-value is less than 0.05, so when the value is less, do you reject the null hypothesis or do you reject the alternate hypothesis? If so, what do we do when the p-value is less than 0.05? Do we reject the null hypothesis? Right. So that's why you will report for your panel data your fixed effect results, right? So I'll show you the slide. I think you will get a better idea then. Just a second. Let me share the screen. Yeah. So let me go to Hausman test. Yeah. IPSA, is this clear? Can you see the screen? So yeah, so the Hausman test. Okay, so I hope the Hausman test is clear. Yeah, so Varun, in these results, you also see the overall R square and the R square that you need to report in the results. The standard coefficient just above that, you will probably get the values of R square as well, right? Now, are we by and large clear with how to run regression on Stata? Are we clear how to run regression on Stata? Have you guys got an idea? Can somebody please answer that? Varun, are we clear? Can you show that Hausman? Yeah, sure. I'll just share the. Right. Siddhant, is it clear? Yeah, so, but before running any equation, you will need to actually, first of all, satisfy all of these conditions. Unit root tests, Uh, Varun's question. So no, ideally your R square value probably should be slightly high, right? But just for the sake of simplicity, we have not meddled with the data. Probably we did not run the autocorrelation test. Probably if autocorrelation is there or any of the assumptions are lying, then you should not ideally, you'll have to manipulate the data to get better results. So you have to change the data if your R square value is probably less than 0.5. Right? You ideally should hope for values that are ideally, IPSA, you're supposed to show the Horstman test because it tells you whether for your model. So the idea of Horstman test is to check whether for your model, which effect is actually more appropriate, random or fixed, right? So the idea of Horstman test is to check whether RE is more suitable or FE is more suitable. So if you have only included FE, maybe you can always represent that Horstman test and always defend it by saying that via Horstman test, it was the probability was less than 0.05. If let's say I am a examiner or I'm asking you a question, whether why have you used FE over RE? That should be your answer. If so, do I make it clear? And you can also check if you haven't submitted your report, run this and check accordingly. But you'll all please do check all these 4 things, your basic assumptions, etc. Right. Okay. Are we clear with data analysis or regression through Stata? I hope by and large you guys have understood something and you get something out of it. What we're going to do, we're going to do a small exercise, I think, which should give you some idea, a bit of practice for whatever we have learned today. I'm going to upload a data, right? I'm going to upload a data on the chat screen, right? I'm going to upload a data on the chat screen. Can you guys see this panel data? Can you guys see this panel data? I think I only sent to few of you. Let me just. Okay, so everybody's got this panel data with you, right? I want you to here in this data in the next 15-20 minutes, run a regression, or rather first try to come up with summary statistics, right? Then a scatter plot or whatever you think makes sense, some pie chart, right? Import this data, right? Check all the things for, again, ROA will be your dependent variable and all the other things, right, will be your independent variable for this data, whatever meaningful variable that you see, and try to run the regression. Tell me whether can you run the regression first of all for this. If not, why, right? Try to do this in the next 10-15 minutes, right? And post your results on the chat box. Is everybody able to see that? Let me open the data here. Let me open the data here. Just a second. Yeah. Is the new data visible to you on the screen and in your chat box? Can somebody just confirm? Is the new data available to you on the screen? Can somebody just confirm? Right. So again, here ROA is a dependent variable, and all the things on the right that you see are independent variable, right? So ROA is non-net performing asset size, loss provision, age, income division, expenditure in priority sector lending, all these things. Here we have two string variables, right? What are the two string variables that you see in this data? Can somebody tell me what are the two string variables? How? So that code in the initial class that we did, Eigen code, right? You'll have to use the Eigen code for both bank and bank type. Both bank and bank type. Now that you have the data, please go ahead and in the next 15 to 20 minutes, right? Run, import this data, run whatever I've taught you today, and tell me whether you can run a regression or not. Try to visualize the data. Right? That's the only way you'll get some hands-on training of data, otherwise you'll forget. So please do that in the next 10-15 minutes. Once you have done, post your screenshots on the chat box. Okay. So have you guys run these tests on the data set that I had just provided you? So were you able to check for all the assumptions that we did? First of all, how many were able to? Okay, IPSA was able to. So IPSA was the data set checked for all the four things that we had. So was it satisfying all the conditions? Siddhant, IPSA. Okay. And you've attached the results in the chat box. All right. So to summarize today, we actually learned how to firstly import data, how to run the code for string variables, and post that we figured out how to come up with summary statistics, graphic visualization of qualitative data, what kind of charts. Somebody has written the conditions were fulfilled. What should we do in that case? I don't think you can do anything in that case. you cannot go ahead in that case. I mean, if your conditions are not fulfilled, then you cannot move forward. So you'll have to relook at your data. Probably, I don't know, right? There must be some issue with your data then. So if the condition not fulfilled, either you'll have to relook at your questionnaire or whatever, your data, right? Varun, do I answer your question? Right, and there's something off with your data. Yeah, of course. I mean, I think, yeah, you'll have to change the data set or change the values in order to get those results. So technically, if you take in data from reliable sources, they should, by and large, satisfy those things. Right. And then you have understood how we ran the regression, fixed effect, random effect, and what is the relevance of the Hausman test. It tells you whether you should use fixed effect or random effect. Now, any doubts till any questions that you have? Any questions pertaining to anything? Right? If you come across any question pertaining to anything, you obviously can write to me. I'm gonna put my email address on the chat box. It's abhinav.pal@scms.noida.ac.in. So as and when if you come across anything that you feel that did not strike to you right now, anything that you want to clarify, then please feel free to. Now there's a small assessment. There's a small assessment that we will be doing for today, and for that, what we are going to do is I will be firstly mailing a link. Just a second. I'm first attaching a Word doc which has set of questions related to whatever workshop we did today. Let me attach that. Okay, can you see this? Yeah, can you see this Word doc? Can everyone see this Word doc that has these MCQs? Could someone just confirm if they can actually see this Word doc? Yeah, so I'm attaching this link, right? It is a Google form. So what you need to do by end of the day today, right? Try to highlight in yellow all the answers that you think are right or correct for the session that we have done today, and upload this on this form, right? Upload this on this form. And I have actually, wait, let me just check. Let me just check on settings. Yeah, could you try again? Could you try again if it's... Can somebody just try this form again? Are you able to? Yeah. So now that the form is available, all you need to do is just fill this form. Okay, so I think I have attached the form, and I've also given a Word doc which has MCQs for whatever that we have covered today. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the session. All the best, right? If you have any doubts, like I said, you can always write to me. So by the end of the day today, 11:59, shouldn't take you a lot of time, very